Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Inside Your Screen Bite Size. This is Snowpiercer, Episode 8. These are his revolutions. And I'm joined with Brendan One Train Horgan. How you doing, Brendan?
I'm good, thank you, Tony. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Well, I think we've probably witnessed the most violent Snowpiercer episode so far. A lot of stuff going on. Revolution is in the air. It's thick with blood and sweat. What did you think, Brendan?
Yeah, it's almost like the last 3 weeks have I started off my summary with saying it's action packed. I think I have for literally the last 3 episodes, but this was the action episode. The revolution has begun. We saw major brutality, many deaths, some pretty savage fight scenes and kind of action in there. So yeah, in regards to, as opposed to just a lot going on in regards to it being action packed, we actually got the physical action this week. The revolution has begun, and the title is awesome. These are his revolutions. I thought, plays into the revolutions of the train and plays into the revolution.
I did wag my finger at the screen when I got that, and I went, "Oh, you sneaky! You played a bit of wordplay here." Yeah, grab your red armbands and get into the fold. Let's just go through the episode, the kind of highlights, what worked for you, what didn't. So we start off straight from the last episode. Miles brings LJ to the engineering board. Now, at first, I thought this was a bit of a stupid idea. I kind of thought, well, she's a bit of a sociopath. You know, what's she actually going to do? There's obviously some stuff going on in the background because really there's 2 revolutions going on if you think about it, or 3 if you count the actual train going around the world. The first one is obviously the tail end trying to get to the first class, the engineering compartment, and the kind of revolution of the kind of class systems. But then also in the first class, there's the kind of revolution against Melanie and the kind of first class basically taking over her there. So I did like that. I like the fact that there was it was coming from all angles. And then obviously, LJ's kind of role is to kind of start that spark with the Folger family and obviously the rest of the first class. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I hadn't even considered the kind of first class as a revolution, so that's a really good take on it there. You're spot on with that. It starts. It was a lot faster paced than I thought it would. It just picks up straight away, and it's like, right, Melanie's on trial. There's no kind of slow build of this episode. It's straight into it. The Folgers go to Ruth and they say, listen, this is obviously after LJ has kind of seen the front of the train or gone up to the engine, and there's no messing about. It's Mr. Willford isn't on the train. What's happening with Mr. Willford? You've got Commander Gray, and they instantly kind of go to Ruth, and Ruth is kind of, initially Ruth won't believe it, and they confront Melanie. We kind of have, just an instant, I wouldn't even call it a trial, but it had shades of the LJ trial, that moment where, Commander Gray's just like, right, kind of holding court in front of all the first classes with Melanie, and, just like send her to the cells. And what I did really like, again, Ruth, they kind of showed the scene where Ruth and Commander Gray go up to the engine, and that's where kind of, well, as far as they can see, there is no Willford. They kind of go into Melanie's quarters, and you see this kind of, that's the moment where you see Ruth, the kind of heartbreak of there being no Willford. And I thought the actress, is it Alison Wright? Is that
Alison Wright?
Yeah, she's fantastic. She's fantastic anyway. But you really felt for her in that scene, where in essence, she's looking around Melanie's quarters and she's kind of following the map, that that was a moment. It was really well done. You really felt for kind of Ruth in that moment.
Oh yeah, I mean the whole kind of build up to that kind of part as well. Like you mentioned, where Melanie kind of comes down, and you can tell that she realizes something's not right as soon as she's walking down the stairs. And what I loved about that scene in particular was the kind of, they go in really close to her eyes to kind of show that she's losing this, but it's the kind of self, the kind of control that she has within herself, that even while all this is going on, and she knows that she's fucked basically.
Yeah, there's a lot of,
but she keeps that composure, which I love about that character as well. The only time she kind of loses it is when LJ shows the picture of her daughter, but you would really, if that's what is to be believed, that the baby hasn't made it and whatnot. So
I picked up on that as well, the close up of her eyes, and there's quite a lot. I liked the way they did it, and this is even within the kind of one scene, but there's quite a lot of, how do you call them, like dramatic beats. Yeah. Where you kind of, it's almost like every 30 seconds, Melanie it's almost like, boom, this is getting worse. Boom, this is getting even worse. Oh shit, the shit has hit the fan. And then it's kind of like that, like you said, that kind of close up of the eyes of like, what is Melanie going to do, basically? And that, really well done.
Well, I mean, out of all the kind of the bloodshed and the kind of close quarters battles that are happening throughout this episode, I think Jennifer Connelly got off quite lightly. She just basically sat for most of the episode in a kind of holding cell. But I mean, this is the kind of, whilst that's happening, the tail ender starting to come through. They're mixing in with the third class now, so they're getting help from the third class with like the electrical components. So Teal's bringing Leighton back down to the tail end. He gives this inspirational speech, the kind of one train, which I actually thought was quite a motivational pep talk. That, like sometimes of those type of speeches, if you will, they can kind of lose you.
They can be cheesy. They can be quite cheesy.
Yeah. But I kind of found myself actually getting pumped up with Leighton and the kind of tailies on this one.
No, yeah, I can't recall word for word what he said. But the script,
all you need to know is one train, Brendan. One train.
Yeah, but whoever wrote that monologue for him and that part of the script, it was brilliant, because there is no cheese there at all. You really are. I'm much like yourself. I was very much taken along with that scene, and it was kind of like, yes, bring on the revolution.
So obviously, then one of the what do you call them? I forgot the name. Brakeman, sorry. Yeah. One of the brakemen sort of escapes and kind of runs up from the kind of third class to the first class, where they're having their kind of like little coup. And so the kind of the Commander Gray, sends his boys back down. So you can see there's this kind of, there's this what's that kind of phrase when you sit when an unmovable object meets an unopposable force. They're coming together from, the third and the kind of tailies, and they're coming from the first. And there's some kind of medieval kind of devices being used down in the kind of these. What would you call that? Like some kind of.
It was like a spear
gun. Yeah.
Gun. Yeah, suppose.
Well, it's like a kind of like a catapult gun, spear gun. Yeah, like I'm pretty sure there's some medieval term for it, but
was not expecting that in the slightest. Did not see that coming.
Fight, yeah.
I was just expecting knives and axes and whatever kind of sword type slash type weapons you can think of. When they pulled that out, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool.
And it's not even just like one wave, it's like at least 3 or 4 waves of like kind of guys that get speared and skewered like shish kebabs.
I think the first one literally took out like 3 men per spear type thing.
Yeah. I mean, the ultra violence was definitely on show on this episode. So you've got some fighting going on in the downstairs compartment, I guess, if you will. What would you call that? The kind of the engineering,
I suppose, like the basement.
The basement area.
Basement,
that's where they do all the kind of where people use the carts and go backwards and forwards. Then you have the kind of, the close quarters scrum happening in the kind of third class area. And that in itself as well was, it's quite brutal in some of the showing there. You've got Gray, who's just going utter barbarian style. He's hacking off limbs left, right, and center. He's slitting people's throats. Leighton is sort of also doing the same, and even Till is getting in on the action. So it's like this kind of almost this like tour de force of like the three of them in super slow motion, arcing as they kind of swing their clubs and their knives and their axes.
That specific scene was again, I know we started off our original podcast saying we won't watch the movie and we'll leave it, but we ended up doing it. But that scene is a massive nod and massive tip of the hat to the movie, because there is a scene in the movie that's very similar to that. The brutality is extremely similar. It's, I know we are in a new era of TV, and like violence is, I suppose, a lot portrayed in a lot more graphic way on television shows than it used to be. It used to be kind of, you'd find an awful lot of kind of really graphic kind of brutality, and violence was kind of almost reserved for movies back in the day, whereas now we kind of, I think Game of Thrones and anybody who's seen Gangs of London has kind of seen it. There has been this transfer over to TV shows and violence, and this is pretty much, this is as brutal as they come. This is, I mean, there's arms being chopped off, and very graphically so. They're not hiding it. They're not kind of alluding to violence going on off the screen. They're showing you the limbs being chopped off.
Yeah, I will say one thing. Like, although the violence is quite, sort of very visual in this episode, the blood itself, I wasn't a big fan of the blood, the fake blood being used. It kind of looked a bit too, don't know what the word is for it. Kind of not watery, but there's a kind of effect that you use with certain blood, like using particulars and motion and stuff like that. But it just looked a little bit too unrealistic for me. Like when people were being actually, like, say, stabbed or speared or skewered, when they're on the floor and like you have pools of blood, on the floor, that's fine. It was the actual, like, the kind of the blood that kind of spurts from people that kind of brought me out a little bit of the action. Did you have the same kind of feeling, or did you not see that at all? Or
no, it didn't bring me out of the scene, and it didn't stand out to me as anything that looked kind of out of place or looked wrong. I did find a lot of the lighting in a lot of those scenes was quite.
Oh, there was a bit of strobe lighting going
on. And there was a kind of almost, and especially the scene where it really kicks off in the night car. And they've got the heavy metal music playing, which is so cool. Like that scene, so
there was something that you mentioned.
Personally, the blood didn't stand out. Yeah, personally, the blood didn't stand out, but there was something to the lighting of that scene that kind of
just made it more effective.
Yeah.
There was something you mentioned in the last episode, I think, which was regarding the actual train itself and how we only seem to see, 6 particular cars. And it was for me anyway, it was very evident. I don't know if it's because of what you said in the last episode. But yeah, all the cars that they go through, like they literally go through, like the kind of classroom, the tail end bit, and they kind of end up in the nightclub, the night car sort of thing. I was kind of thinking like they could have used, I mean, they're showing people coming from like, the back end of the train. They're showing people come from the front end of the train. I know obviously budget restrictions and whatnot, but I would have loved to have seen maybe a few new cars in this episode, just to see, even if it's just like just to see them walk past and not even have any fights in. And if they did have a fight in a particular car, that I suppose that would bring the audience out of the kind of area, because they'd be like, where is this place? But it would have been nice just to see like a few new walls, if that makes sense.
Yeah, especially knowing that there's going to be a season 2. I really hope that we're going to get, we will get at least another carriage in the next episode, because the next, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the next episode is the final episode. It's a 2-hour special.
Oh, so they're not doing a 9 and 10, they're just like doing a kind of,
so next,
okay. So we're going to have to do like a a monumental breakdown of the penultimate episode and then the final episode, like all in one scene. What do you think?
I'm not sure. I think we'll have to see how it plays out, but I think it's one episode, but it's just an extent. Okay. So rather than them releasing 2 episodes in one, I might be wrong, but I definitely know that it's a 2 hours. They're advertising it as a 2-hour season finale next week.
Okay. And then one last little thing as well, like there was a little kind of, I couldn't help but say it when I saw it, when they, the Jackboots arrive in the 3rd car and they see the box. I just kept on going, what's in the box? What's in the box? And then they open the box, and of course it's one of the guards' heads. I just thought that was a nice little touch there.
Yeah, didn't see that coming either.
No, I thought it was going to be a grenade, to be honest, because that would have been like a homemade sort of, IED or something to kind of take out a lot of the Jackboots. Would have been probably more effective, but I don't suppose you could probably make your own homemade grenade or something in Snowpiercer. I don't know. If they can make a bloody torpedo gun, or whether the hell it was, then I'm sure they could make some kind of grenade. But, that's by and by. So, yeah, I want to get on to the main topic, really, I think, of this episode is that it
just
doesn't...
Before we do, sorry, just a quick...
I was getting to that climax, but you cut me off. Go on.
Before we get there, I loved the scene where, is it Brakeman Roach, where basically they let Leighton and the tail pass through.
Well, there was. I think if the episode was, about really like hyper violence and whatnot, that was the kind of, the last. I kind of think what do you do for duty as opposed to going for your fellow man? And I think that kind of epitomized it quite well in that respect, because obviously you have Leighton until they're coming up and they're just saying like, look, just step aside. You don't need to lose any brakemen here. And then all the kind of, the third cars are kind of like the civilians are looking over the kind of banisters and all that as well. And you can see the conflict going on within him. Yeah. You can see the conflict definitely there as like, he obviously he knows them. But then he's also the kind of highest ranking. Well, I suppose he's the highest ranking brakeman.
Yeah, you'd assume so. You'd assume it seems that he's like in charge of the brakeman. Yeah, the commander. Yeah, or whatever.
There is that kind of confliction going on. But yeah, like in the end, he kind of turns around and just says, "Okay, yep, step aside." And it's Till really that kind of, for me, broke the straw on the camel's back, because she basically says, like, look, when all this is over, this train's going to need some order, and the more brakemen around, the better. And he kind of sees sense in that, and it kind of makes sense that would be the case, because there are no winners in this. There are amount of losses on the Taily side. There's amount of losses on the Jackboot side. So yeah, no, that definitely was a very kind of good scene.
And it was a great moment as well where the brakemen kind of, they hold their line initially. And you see, you can hear the tail coming up, and Oz is kind of like, "We've got to go, we've got to back up." He's like, "What are we going to do? There's 400 of them back there." And Roach just says something along the lines of, "Yeah, and I bet that they really like you after the way you've treated them the last few years." It's that moment.
That's why he pieces out, man. He just pieces out. He's like, done.
Shit, I'm gone, mate. He's like, fuck this, I'm out.
I would say that if because we effectively get to I suppose a sort of stalemate, really. There's losses on both sides, but effectively the Jackboots retreat. Gray retreats up to the first class, and Leighton and the others are kind of sort of left licking their wounds. I wonder if Oz is going to be like an honorary Jackboot. I think that's probably where he's going.
No.
You don't think?
No. Oz is going to look completely out for his own arse. Oz is probably in his room and will stay in his room.
Cowering away.
100%. They'll even, just because of the way that character has been, and, they've shown him to be a real arsehole, but, we kind of saw the human side of him when he thought he was going to die with Till. And, even though he is an arsehole, there is a kind of humorous side to his character.
I suppose he's I mean, he's quite. There's two edges to him. There is a like comic relief about him.
Yeah.
He's also a bit of a dick, not in that kind of like horror movie sense of like, you know, the jock or whatever who's like throughout the whole thing. If he does have like a redeemable arc, like if he goes out in a blaze of glory or something, helping Till and Leighton, then maybe. But I don't know. I've got the feeling that. If you know, even when the second series does come, that I think that his position will be ranked higher. I think he'll play a bit more of a pivotal role if he doesn't die in the next 2 episodes. Then
I really hope, like, considering that we know there's a season 2, I really hope they don't kill off Oz.
I think before
I can't believe I'm saying that, by the way.
I know, but like I reckon there is going to be a few more, maybe 2 or 3 more deaths before we see the kind of final credits roll. Maybe, yeah. Even Melanie, perhaps. We don't know. Like, so this is where I was going to. So it does appear that Willford is dead. Maybe. We're still unsure.
Well, for the first time ever, Melanie has said he is dead.
She's been quite specific as well, because she said she left him outside of the train before it disembarked.
Of course she did.
She could be lying, of course. And I am still waiting for that moment where one of the drawers opens and Sean Bourne is there, and he's just like, "Yeah, bastards." But it kind of flips it on its kind of side, really. Like, she kind of like makes out that he's like this womanizing, this gambler. Like, he only did Snowpiercer so he could be like have his own like whore cars and everything like that. And there's a kind of sense that there's a kind of truth to that, because her conviction, the way she's talking to Ruth in the holding cell, is quite. I mean, I don't know. She is a really good liar, because she's been deceiving everyone for years. So maybe she's just become so good at it that it just comes naturally to her now. But I believed her.
I don't think I did.
Okay.
I don't think I did. I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna say it right, but. That was the element of the story in this episode. I'll be honest, it's the first time in the whole series where my heart sunk a little bit.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, what? But then my head kind of kicked in a little bit more after watching the episode, and I'll give my reasoning behind it. But my heart sunk a little bit, because I was like, what? Like, he's dead and he's not on the train. Like, I'm disappointed with that. I'm disappointed with that from a story arc, and you know, that's it. That's an issue with me. I am totally by the book in regards to different people have different opinions. But I'll be blunt. I'll be pretty clear here. If there is no Willford on the train, full stop, I am still totally on the assumption that he's in one of those drawers, right? That he's not dead. That he
snuck on board somehow.
She's telling them he's dead, because if she told them the truth, she'd reveal this other big dark secret that we don't yet know about. Because my question still and has always been, what is the purpose of the drawers? I've had a few kind of predictions, and I have some ideas, but deep down, that's the story arc that we don't know really the answer to. In my head, that's the only story arc we don't know the answer to. What is the purpose of the drawers? What are they for? How do they work?
If we believe Melanie, then they are an experimentation for kind of suspension.
But remember, I already. Oh, sorry. Continue.
No. It's just that I can't remember which episode it was, but there was that kind of part where she was explaining that they're basically trialing and experimenting with like stasis or cryogenic animation in that kind of respects, because they know at some point in the future that these people, like, you know, the world, they can however many kind of revolutions across the world. And hopefully the hope is that the kind of ice starts thawing and starts kind of decreasing in temperature, so that these people in the drawers will be like the kind of next evolutionary people, I guess. Like, imagine a spaceship going from, one of the ends of the galaxy to the other. Like people are going to be like in kind of cryo sleep to kind of like then form a new kind of colony on a planet. I think it's something along those lines. I think that's basically what she said in lesser words.
She did, but that was the scene with Leighton where she was basically pleading for her life, right?
But she could have been telling the truth.
Yeah, but in the same sense, she said, and she specifically said, there's 400 people who were selected because of their skills, because of their sets, because of these people were specifically selected, to go into the drawers. That's her perception, because they are the ones who we need to survive to restart the world once the snow starts to melt. But she's already proved that isn't the case, because they put in whatever you call him,
criminals as well, like the people.
They put in the big guy, Pike, and the other one from episode 1, which was literally, it's a punishment. We're putting you in there. It's almost like prison.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the strong boy and Pike, because in this episode, at the very end, we find out that they're being released, and the actual strong boy can actually talk. I think he's Mandarin he talks, but he's a mute, so don't know what's going on there really. But Pike's the. Do you think he'll turn out to be the kind of turncoat, or do you think he'll kind of come good in the end? Because old Stevie Ogg's not been known to be playing a kind of hero character many times.
No, I have a feeling that I think he is the bad guy. I think we haven't had a bad guy from the tail, so everybody from the tail is a tailie. All go the tail. One what eventually becomes one train. All of the characters are good guys. Really, they've been portrayed as them. We haven't seen any snip. To an extent, Zara. All right,
yeah,
I take that back. Zara
but she was kind of her hand was forced, really.
Her hand was forced, yeah. So, but in regards to just complete bad guy,
Pike just wants cake, man. He just wants cake. He wants his cake and he wants to eat it. Yeah. And he'll give over anyone just to get his cake. And I kind of like that about it. But
like just give me one more piece of that pie. And,
a delicious chocolate pie.
Yeah, and, I'll give you everything you want, man. So I think Pike's a bad guy. I think he's a turncoat.
Well, his kind of last words, and I think the last words of the actual episode are like, keep on at him, he'll crumble. He's, Leighton's a good, intentioned guy. He's a good cop, but he won't be able to kind of put up with all the kind of losses he's having. So keep digging at him, and he'll crumble. And then we see Leighton's turn around to the camera, and once again another kind of straight in your face type of sort of visual aid there, and it cuts to black. So. Yeah, I guess we'll see how the cards are gonna go down.
Yeah, do you know what I really have loved about this series, and it really, really came to a head in this episode? The way, as a audience, as a viewer, they are challenging us about how we feel about certain characters, massively so. I think the Melanie has been a really good example of this, where it's almost like we've seen this pathological liar right throughout the series. We've seen just how far she will go to keep her train running and to keep order on her train, and that includes some really dark shit like torture and murder. So she will go out there and she do these things that make you really dislike the character. But we're at a stage after this episode where you're almost like, shit, like, let's go on the assumption, no matter what happens, I definitely believe the fact that Melanie designed the train. I don't think any of that stuff is lies. I think Melanie designed the train. She's proved, in the episode.
She's proved time and time again
that she is in charge of that train from a technical aspect as well as like the hospitality side. But she is the expert engineer on that train, right? Mm-hmm. Excuse me. So Willford isn't, in that regard, isn't there, but they've almost portrayed this character, so we really shouldn't like her, we really shouldn't despise her. But now that it looks like they're going to execute her, as a viewer, I'm kind of sat here going, You can't execute her, because if you execute her, you're all dead.
Well,
You need her. You need her.
yeah. Do you think
Rely
she'll
on her.
be? I
She
think
is,
you think she'll have saving grace.
and in the same sense, it questions, and this is like the whole moral point of, you're like, has she been right all along? Does it need to be like this? You know, do you need this class system in order for everything to run smoothly? Do you need it? And it's kind of, it's deep moral stuff, and I find it fascinating. As I said,
No,
like,
definitely, I agree. I mean,
we should hate Melanie. We should really hate Melanie. But if we're looking at, like, for
you
the
empathise
safety,
with her. Yeah.
the safety of everybody in this train right now, you're going, guys, you are making a big mistake if you're going to kill Melanie.
Well, I mean, yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Like, I think, the only thing keeping the train in any kind of working order, apart from the elbow grease from like the third and the tailies and whatnot, is belief. And that essentially is the belief in Mr. Willford as being the kind of glue that stuck everyone together. And now we know that that glue is coming apart rapidly. So will she be executed? Do you think that will be the kind of a shock value tactic? Or
I
do you think there'll be
bloody
like
hope not. I bloody
it'll be
hope
like
not.
a Deus Ex Machina at the end, and
I
she'll be let out at the end, or something will occur, and she'll team up with Leighton?
Okay, I'm going to go on this assumption, right? I'm going to go on my kind of hopeful
I'll
assumption.
tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to write down your assumption now, right? And then we can pick this up in the next episode. So what's your assumption for Melanie? Do you think she's going to get killed?
Well, this is just my assumption for Melanie is no, she won't be killed.
Okay.
And this is my positive, I'm being hopeful assumption, just in regards to my views on the show. There is a Willford, and he's in a drawer.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm going to go on the assumption that whatever happens, that the revolution will be quelled. It will be stopped in its tracks. There will be a revelation that Willford is alive. And I think what you said, it might have been last week or the week before, is possibly going to be correct, where almost like Melanie will be sent to the tail, but she will only be called upon when required, because she is a criminal. She might even, be put in the drawers. I don't know, but I'm kind of going on this assumption that Willford, at the end of the series, Sean Bean is there, Willford is there, Root and Melanie ends up basically being put in the tail. And season 2 is almost like that hard rock in a hard place where Willford is probably going to start losing. But anyway, let's not go too deep. But I think Melanie might end up in the tail, and it's almost like that's going to be our story of season 2, is how does this work now that Willford is back, and that and it was what she said about him true, those fears, and that's. But I can see Melanie not being killed, but I can see the revolution being stopped. Maybe some agreement where maybe the tail and third live together, but I can see Melanie being pushed down the system, or maybe in prison, or being sent to the tail. And that concept of we only use Melanie when we need her. And then again, so in answer to your question, I could see in season 2 Melanie and Leighton being on the same side. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna agree with you for most of those things, but just to make it interesting, I'm gonna make some notes here now, which I'm gonna throw just a couple of things. So I'm gonna say that Melanie's gonna die, right? I'm gonna say I think that's the expectation, and there's a version of the expectation of the audience is that we think that she's gonna live, but it turns out no. I know I'm gonna be wrong. I know she will. I get the impression I'm with you on that, but I just want to kind of throw it out there. I think you're right. The revolution will be stopped, but I think it will become a kind of tyranny. I think the Folger family are going to gain power. So I'm going to put down Folger family in power.
Okay. So do you see Willford coming? Do you think we don't see Willford? No, Sean Bean.
I once again, I agree with you that I think that's going to happen, but just for argument's sake, I'm going to put down no. And I know he's already on IMDb as like whatever as Mr. Willford, but I think in the second series, I don't know. It could be flashbacks. It could be, I don't know. But I'm just going to, argument's sake, I'm going to say no.
Okay.
No,
cool. Here's a quick question for you, and this is more a kind of knowledge thing. Are you aware of TV shows putting up fake IMDb cards? I genuinely mean that. Like right now, if you look at IMDb, Jennifer Connolly is down for 20 episodes of the show, right? Which tells me she's in season 2. But my question is do they ever, production company, are you aware of them putting fake information or false information on stuff like IMDb?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been aware of like false information. I wouldn't say fake as such, more false, because of the fact that, like, you know, an actor may sign up for something that just doesn't happen, or for whatever reason the development goes in for so long that they then get off it or whatnot, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Other things, because I think Stephen Ogg, for example, so he's Pike, and I think he's down for like 8 episodes or something like that. So far he's only been in like 2.
Yeah, and just to let you know as well, I'm just going to get it up because I've got my my browser open. But I'm pretty sure Sean Bean as a character is in it for 13 episodes. And he's technically only been in 1.
So unless they have the second script already greenlit and that's already been, like, you know, put through the kind of approval and everything, and these actors have all signed up for like the next series, which would be in some kind of ways realistic, but also at the same time disappointing, because then we know, for example, unless they're using like flashbacks or kind of voiceovers or something like that, then the actual actors will be in the second series, which diminishes any kind of hope that person will hope for, that they will not die. Yeah, sorry.
Right. Oh. So just because this, and again, if anybody's listening and they are aware of kind of IMDb not being completely 100% accurate in regards to the number of episodes and stuff, drop us a tweet or something just so that we can stop worrying about it. As an example, Jennifer Connolly, 20 episodes, Davy Diggs, 20 episodes, Mickey Summer, who plays Beth Till, 20 episodes, Alison Wright, who plays Ruth, 20 episodes. Where's Bean? Because Bean's the important one. Sean Bean, Mr. Willford, 11 episodes. Does that, to me, that says that's all of season 2 and the last episode of season 1?
Could be
11 episodes.
I guess we don't have long to find out if they're doing the 2 episodes as a kind of extended one this Sunday. So I think what we'll do then is we'll wrap it up, because we could talk on for hours, Brendan. We could literally sit here talking until the sun comes up. But we can't, because that would be too long. So we'll pick this up, I think, next Monday. And we'll have I've got this written down now, so I've got our kind of predictions. And we shall see what will happen on the next episode of Snowpiercer. You can catch us on Inside Your Screen on Twitter, on Instagram, and we're on SoundCloud, and we're on what other things are we on, Brendan? I always forget this. I'm going to need to write it down.
We're on YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. So all your main podcast sites, we put up all our bite-sized podcasts on YouTube, and Tony adds like a really cool kind of video to it as well. Check out the YouTube as well, because Tony does loads of gaming stuff on there. So he's got game reviews. He's got movie reviews on there for certain individual movie reviews he's done himself. And there's loads of other stuff. We've done some, myself and Tony had a Command and Conquer battle on there. That's on there. The latest kind of Naughty Dog game, The Last of Us 2. Check it out. Tony's got some footage from the first, I think, is it the first 3 hours of gameplay?
It's the first 3 hours. I was going to do a review on it, but there's no point now, really. Anyone who wants to know about it, knows about it.
Well, tune in next week, because Tony's going to have a full review of the game. As you can tell, because you can see how enthusiastic about it.
So enthusiastic, yeah.
He's got a Last of Us 2 review. So yeah, your main kind of podcast site, YouTube, and yeah, check out all the stuff. Twitter with Inside Your Screen, with UR for your Inside Your Screen. We're on Instagram, it's the same. And yeah, get in contact with us. Let us know what you think about the pod. Let us know what you thought about the latest episode of Snowpiercer. We want feedback. We want debate. We want people to disagree with our theories. So please do. We try to interact with everybody who interacts with us. So yeah, get in contact.
Inside your